Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Chris Story, and I am the Assistant Director of Water Environment Services, but that's not why I'm here. I am a member of the Oregon City Business Alliance Board, but that is not why I'm here. It is because my night job, I am on the Oregon City School District Board of Directors. For the last 10 years, I've been an elected official working on behalf of the children of our community to try and deliver quality education and ensure that we have the next generation of kids ready to go to support our community. And that is why I'm here today. So I first wanted to say thank you for ruining my presentation. He kind of ran through everything that we were going to say, and this is going to go way faster than we thought. But actually what I wanted to do is just give you a preview of coming attractions. So I wanted to tell you why we're here, some things that the school district is doing, and what we're hoping to accomplish with this bond. You may be thinking, where did this bond come from? Why do we even have this conversation? And I want to mention that this is a long time coming, in the sense that the first sort of genesis around this idea was right after the bond for the high school, the new high school, was passed in the year 2000, which was the first substantial investment made in schools since 1974. So we had a 26-year gap where we weren't doing anything, and the bond was invested to, at that point, it was very clear that we were not going to be able to just renovate the Jackson campus, so we constructed a new high school on the Moss campus, a former middle school. And then planning was, well, what are we going to do with all the other buildings? And the answer was, well, wait until the old bond, the high school bond, expires, and then we'll be going back and talking to the community so that we don't have to increase their taxes much to still be able to reinvest with the kids. And then we just sort of sat quietly for 10 plus years and started up the process again in 2013 when we refinanced the bonds to drop your interest rates even lower and the taxes even lower to make sure that we were not burdening the taxpayers of the Oregon City School District. And in doing so, we actually set it up such that even as the bond is expiring of the old bond, you could start up a new one and they could overlap without really increasing the rate. We were able to stair-step down the debt service payments so there would not be a material impact to people. And then we started some committees. I don't know if you're familiar with government, but that's what we do. We decided we needed some committees and maybe committees after that and committees to talk about the committees, but what we did. So we met as a school district and we started talking about this stuff. Then we formed a committee and it was called the Long Range Facility Advisory Committee. And that just rolls off the tongue, doesn't it? You might say it was called LARFAC. So it really brought to mind those Aflac commercials when people would say it out loud. And we had some great conversations. Members of the community came in and we talked about what we needed to do. And they came up with a proposal and some pricing, and then we went out and we started really engaging with the community. We went around to every school in the district. We invited the parents in, and the answer was that may be a little too ambitious, maybe a little too expensive. We're not going to be able to rehab all the middle schools and all the elementary schools. So we wound it back down a little bit, and then we formed another committee on which some people here in this room served to help us set the appropriate level for the bond measure. And we came up with a plan. And the plan was we are going to address the middle school challenges and safety challenges and just sort of take care of the basics and think upon a phase 3 when we'll be able to talk about the elementary school level schools. And then, I don't know if anyone's in the development world, prices got high. I'm sure everyone's looking around going, the numbers that we have seen for construction inflation are ridiculous. So about 3 months ago, the school board got back together and said, I don't think we're going to be able to build everything we wanted to build at the middle school level. So what are we going to do? So we, instead of asking for more money, we reduced what we were asking for, and that's what you're going to see in this presentation today. And I think it's a great approach, and I hope you'll support it. But before we get to that, I want to turn it over to Kyle Lair, who is the assistant superintendent for the school district. Fortunately, recently returned to us. He served as a teacher and as a principal at several of our schools, and then he was lured away by the evil school district of Newburgh to be a principal there. But we won in the end. So I'm thrilled to have him back to talk about what you can see in the current sort of functionality of the school district. And just to warn you, I didn't want him to, I wanted him to stop me from rambling. Okay, that's what it was. But we're going to trade off a little bit, so you'll see both of us speaking. And here's Kyle.
All right, so first of all, I see a lot of familiar faces from back when I was at Case and got to come to these lunches and interact with some of you, and I'm excited to be back and really excited about the opportunities that are ahead for us here in Oregon City. And what I want to start off with is we have a lot of great things going on. And I want to make sure that you guys are aware of some of those things that make the Oregon City School District unique and add value to our community. And so first of all, some of those things that we celebrate is one, we are truly a leader in educational options. When we talk about the different kinds of educational options that we provide for students, we're very similar to some districts that are larger and have the ability to offer those things. As a district our size, we've got a lot more options than other districts that are a similar size to Oregon City, and that comes from not only just a great management of the school district, but also just an intent to ensure that we're educating all of the different types of students that come our way to make sure that we're preparing them for the future that they are working towards. And so, and just kind of running through a couple of those, and I'll go through more here as we go. Many of you are aware we have multiple charter schools in the district. We have 2 independent charter schools, and we have 2 district-sponsored. The 2 district-sponsored charter schools give us 2 different high school options outside of Oregon City High School, which is our more traditional comprehensive high school option. We have the Oregon City Service Learning Academy, which has a focus on service, has a focus on job preparation, and has some other focuses on preparing some kids who need some extra support. And we also have the one I'm very familiar with, the Clackamas Academy of Industrial Sciences, which many of you are aware is a partnership between businesses in this region, specifically manufacturing companies, the community college, and the school district, and preparing students for careers in engineering, manufacturing, and the trades, which we know right now we've got a great need for. We also have a bilingual program in our school district that prepares students with an education that allows them to come out of their school system with being bilingual in Spanish and in English. And in some cases, some more languages than just that as well too. So those are some really unique things that we have, some options that really honestly, school districts our size typically do not have. And there's some great things that we're providing for our students. We also have a lot of great community partnerships. When you talk about Case, obviously there's a lot of business partnerships, not only in the Oregon City area, but all throughout the region. We've had the Pioneer Pantry, which has helped feed some of our students that don't oftentimes go home on the weekends with meals and food for them, and that's been done through partnerships with businesses in this community. We also have the really unique and great partnership that I'm really excited about, continue to be excited about, with Clackamas Community College. The ability to have a community college in your hometown and to have the partnerships that we have with that college gives our students opportunities that don't exist in a lot of other areas as well. So we've got some really great things going on there. Obviously, as you guys know, if you live in this community, we have amazing students. We really, truly do have some great kids doing some amazing things. Some of them I know are your kids that have come through our system, have done some amazing things. And then we have a great staff. One of the things that definitely attracted me back to Oregon City is we have put a lot of time, effort, and resources in investing in our staff members to make sure that as educators, they are best prepared to be able to support our students. And that's caused a lot of our educators to stay. It's also caused a lot of our educators to have a skill set that is greater than you see in some other school districts. We have a higher rate of teachers, for instance, that are nationally board certified teachers that have gone through that process. And that really comes from the investment that the school district has made in ensuring that there is a quality educator in front of every student in every classroom. And that's, I would love to say that it happens in every school district. I know every school district makes an effort to that, but I believe the Oregon City School District does a great job of that, if not one of the better jobs in the state. And then, as many of you are aware as well, we're continually awarded for our fiscal responsibility. This has not been the easiest time in schools over the last decade plus with the way school financing has gone and coming out of the recession. But our school district, one of the things that has helped us remain in a position where we can offer so many options for students and do a great job for our staff in ensuring that they're ready to teach kids is by being fiscally responsible and making sure that we're doing that really well so that we are getting as much out of the money that we do receive from the state as possible. And so a lot of great things happening there, which in the end create a great educational experience for our students. Going a little bit more specifically in some of these, I think most of you know that Oregon City High School has one of the highest graduation rates in the state. And as a district, as you look at the graduation rates for the Oregon City School District, so including Case and Oxlaw into that picture, we are above the state average pretty significantly aware of it as well. So we are doing a much better job than a lot of school districts are in ensuring that our kids are graduating. And of course, we're focused on making sure they're not just graduating, but that they're graduating prepared for whatever that next step it is that they decide to take into their future. Career and technical education. I know that that's one that's probably extremely important to this group right here. We have stayed focused on this. Career and tech ed, while throughout the state everybody is talking about it, everybody wants to make sure that kids are getting opportunities in career and technical ed so that they're prepared for the workforce of tomorrow. It's a really difficult thing to do during these financial times in this state. The school district has made this a priority. Oftentimes when people look at that, they think of the Clackamas Academy of Industrial Sciences, but we have this happening, career and technical ed, at Oregon City High School, at Case, and at Oxlaw. It happens in different ways, and additionally, part of the reason that that's so successful is our partnership with Clackamas Community College. We're able to provide for our students a certain level of career and tech ed, and the community college being our partner and being our neighbor has helped us really expand that so that students in this school district are getting more than a lot of students in other school districts are. So we're extremely excited about that, and we want to see expansion in that. We want to see career and technical opportunities grow, not just for high school students, but also moving down into our middle schools and our elementary schools so that kids are prepared for the workforce that they come out to when they graduate. Educational choices. We talked a little bit about this. We have the Magnet Bilingual Program at Jennings Lodge, Candy Lane. I think most of you are aware we transitioned in this past year to where that's become fully a bilingual program in those two elementary schools and then up through Gardner Middle School. And then we're working on creating that program and continuing it through the high school to give our kids a top-notch, if not the best, bilingual experience in the state of Oregon. And with that being said, I kind of ran on a little bit too, so we're maybe checking each other. I'm going to let Chris talk a little bit about some of the challenges that we face as a school district.
You don't need to clap for him, let's just be clear.
How about the graduation rate?
That was pretty awesome though, wasn't it? Absolutely. Yes, well, of course, I have to admit if one were to talk about performance metrics, our target is 100%. We want every kid to have a quality education and graduate from high school, but the fact that we're getting so close to that is something we're definitely proud of. He got to talk about the sunshine stuff. I'm here to talk a little bit about the cloudy day. So we face some challenges as well as a school district, and part of that is the context why we're having this conversation. The state funds schools, and I'm sure this is going to be fascinating to you, but basically it's all through your income taxes. You pay a property tax, and you'll see it on your line, but it doesn't go to the school district. What happens is they take that money and they throw it into a pot at the state, and then they add in income taxes and they mix it all together so that every student, in theory, across the state gets the same allocation. So if you're in a district where they have really high property taxes, you pay a lot of property taxes and little of your income tax makes the number. If you have low property taxes, they make it up with income taxes. In theory, that's the way it goes. But then there's some weightings and references and blah, blah, blah. This short answer is the state runs through this metric, and it's using its general fund primarily to make education happen. I don't know if you've noticed, but the state seems to be continually lurching from crisis to crisis at the legislature from a funding perspective, and so the share of the state budget that's devoted to education has been decreasing every biennium. It used to be around half of all income taxes were used to support education. We're now around 35%, 34%. So while the absolute dollars are not shrinking, although they did during the recession, they're not keeping up with the relative priorities, you might say. We have some old and outdated facilities. I'm going to dwell on that on a different slide so I don't bore you how. And costs are going up. I don't know if you are familiar with the PERS issue. Has anyone mentioned this in the papers? Has anyone heard of this? It's a significant challenge in that every year we're having to pay more with respect to our current employees to pay for our past employees, which pulls money away from our current operating expenses. It makes it kind of hard. But this is the part that I wanted to emphasize. This is a neat graphic. I hope you get a chance to really look at it. You will see one number from this century. which is the Oregon City High School, built in 2003. Every other building was built in the last century, which sounds really bad, right? But I think I can beat that. How many people here went to Gardner Middle School, or had a parent, or had a grandparent attend Gardner Middle School? I say that because if you look at the numbers and where they were built, you will see that virtually all of our schools were built, constructed, and designed around the baby boomer generation. The greatest generation came back from World War II and then started building schools because they had all those kids. So most of our buildings were built in the 50s and 60s. Our most recent building, other than the Oregon City High School, is McLaughlin Elementary, 1975. So that one's still doing okay, but if you're in the business context and you say the last time I made an investment was in 1975, I'm going to throw it out there. You may be a little behind the times. So part of our challenge has been, in the school district world, you spend almost all of your money on staff because you want to get as many teachers in the classroom, you want to reduce class sizes, you want to have instructional assistants, you have bus drivers, you have cooks, you have janitors. 80% of our budget is spent on staff. So we don't spend a whole lot on our facilities. What facility money we do have, we spend it on maintaining what we have. We do not have a reserve set aside for additional construction. The only way school districts have for improving their facilities is a bond like this. And a bond is a revenue source that is outside our normal regular budget dedicated just to capital to make sure that we can make these improvements. I was going to make a joke about how many people were born after these were made, but I think I'll just save us the embarrassment and move on. A lot of people have asked the question, well, are you blowing up because of growth? And let's talk about what you're seeing as far as all this new development that's happening. And it's fascinating because we are seeing growth in Oregon City, and it's not particularly related to building of new houses. People move in, people move out, but overall our attendance has been flat to declining over this period, in part because demographically people didn't have that many babies during the recession and the first few years when we were coming out of it. So there's a big gap where we're just not seeing a lot of students, but we're projecting they're going to show up. But growth is not driving the problem. This is not the builders are building it and therefore we're having a huge problem. The problem is the previous slide. Everything's old. The average age of our buildings is 61 years. I think they're due for a little reinvestment. So we're going to try to, not that 61 is in any way a bad age, right? I think we're all clear that it's perfectly fine for a person, but it may be a little challenging for a building that gets an awful lot of wear and tear by little running feet. So with that, I'm going to ask Kyle to give you an overview of what we're going to do with this bond.
All right, so the bond that will be on the ballot in November is to raise $158 million. And so in thinking about that, obviously the first thing that comes to mind was what's that impact on me as a property tax or a property owner? So in looking at that, what would that cost? $158 million to invest into our schools would cost, you can see the visual up there, it's a dime per 1,000 assessed value. Okay, so currently the tax rate that people in Oregon City, the Oregon City School District are paying is $1.14, and that would move to $1.24 per 1,000 of assessed value on your property. Which would be about, if you took your assessed value and your assessed value was around $300,000, that's about $250 per month and about $30 per year, okay, with that assessed value of about $300,000. Okay, so we've already had many of us that are living in Oregon City bring up, like, I can take one Starbucks off a month to invest in this, but that's about the level of investment per month per 1,000 of assessed value is a dime, so about $250 per month. Okay, now what would it do? Is dime okay? Are you guys okay? Like, I'm seeing some chuckling about that. So what would it do though? This $150 million investment, and as Chris talked about, construction costs are having an impact on this, but we still are able to address 3 highly needed areas. The first being safety and security, which I'm going to talk a little bit more about in a second, reduce overcrowding, and then upgrade and update our schools. First piece of this is, and I can speak to this for anybody in the room, safety and security has significantly changed since all of us went to high school, middle school, or elementary school. Okay, many of you are aware from the context of watching the news and seeing what's happened nationally. Those are reporting some of the instances, and to be perfectly honest, very few of the instances that we have that deal with safety and security. I just spent the last decade as a building administrator, and I can tell you within that decade of being a principal, the focus on safety and security changed significantly to where, truthfully, my last 2 years at Newburgh High School, that was my main job, was ensuring that that building that was not built for the world that we live in right now was safe for the 1,600 students that I saw every day. And that's a challenge that all of our buildings in the Oregon City School District face as well, too. And so there is a need to do some safety upgrades, and we're obviously, the world of schools and the world of building and architecture are taking a greater look at this, and we're getting much smarter about how we do this and how we keep our buildings safe, while still at the same time making them places that are warm and welcoming for all of our students and families that come to them. And so when you talk about some of the safety and security that we'll be looking at is building secure entries at all schools. Okay, there was a time period when most of our schools had multiple entrances and you could just walk in. Okay, we're trying to do that differently now to where we have vestibules in place where you come into a building and you can't just access the main part of the building. Okay, you are going to enter, you're going to, excuse me, I'm losing the word. You will come into an area and you will be greeted by somebody in some way, shape, or form before you are allowed full access into our school building. Okay, and that's something that's become more of the norm, and that's something that this bond would address. We also need to replace aging emergency communications and upgrade, in some cases, replace or even add some of our visual security systems. Those have just become a normal part of the work that we do, and we need to make upgrades in that to ensure that our students are safe in the schools that we have here in the Oregon City School District. And I'm going to hand it over to Chris to speak a little bit about overcrowding.
The safety and security is definitely our number one priority, and interestingly, the school board was tasked with thinking about this. We had, can you guess the word, a committee that looked at this. We went out, we actually attended a couple architectural conferences on school design to talk about what we can do. And this was one of the main areas that is emphasized for safety and security, to make sure that, frankly, some of our buildings were just not designed with the idea that you would keep an eye on the kids all the time, or you would prevent someone from just walking in all the time. And it's not, I mean, you may be thinking school shootings, but it's also ensuring strangers just don't walk into a building. In some cases, you have parents that are having custody fights, and they come in and are arguing over who gets to take the kid away. You want to have a barrier between the kid and that interaction where the staff can try and maintain safety and security. But you may be thinking to yourself, wait a minute, he just said it's not caused by growth, it's caused by aging infrastructure. How come you have overcrowding? That's because back during the recession, in order to avoid having a school year with 20 furlough days and cutting the year so short, we reconfigured the school district to fit both a more efficient operational model and to better fit sort of the modern pedagogical approach as far as instruction. We reconfigured it so that instead of having a K through 6 elementary school, we had a K-5 elementary school, and we moved the 6th graders up to the middle school. So you have a 6-8 middle school now, which has become the norm, and the evidence suggests clearly that 6th graders do better not around kindergartners, but around 7th and 8th graders. I don't know if you've been around 6th, 7th, 8th graders, but they are their own separate beast. I've got 2 of them, and they need to be separated sometimes. But that led us to shifting some kids up to the middle schools, both of the middle schools. We added some modulars there for classroom space. They're housed, but it was a temporary solution because the cafeterias, the hallways, the gym, all the common facilities are sized for a school that is 50% smaller than what's there now. They were sized for 600 kids. We've got 875 to 900 kids at each of those schools. So they're struggling. There's a bit of overcrowding. You may have heard that complaint. So this is the plan. We're looking at our 2 middle schools, 2 of the older schools in the school district, and we're gonna address the problem. Gardner Middle School, I think you probably know where this is. That's just off of Warner Milne. There's right next to the PGE transport facility, if you don't know where that is. And this is the site where the new Gardner Middle School will go. What we're going to talk about and plan for is building a new school where the track is. We're going to not have to buy a new piece of land. We'll use the same piece of land. We'll build right there on the same site. We'll construct the school while the school is still in session. So kids may have to go track elsewhere, but we will not interrupt school services. We'll construct a school right next to it, open it up, and then tear down the other school and build the athletic facilities needed to support the middle school. So we won't have to buy land. This is a full replace. Gardner, built in 1954, has frankly hit the end of its useful life. It's really struggling from a standpoint, and we did several reviews. We've hired engineers and architects. They did the walkthrough, and we asked them which would be cheaper, remodel or replace, and the answer was replace. Wow, this is gonna be a money pit if you try and just rehab it. So that's the strategy for Gardner. Next up is Ogden. Ogden is actually a little bit outside the city limits. If you head down right next to the city limits. Happy to be close to the city, Tony, but it's not in the city limits. It was originally designed for 600 kids, got 900 now. What we're going to do now is upgrade some of the common facilities, cafeteria, common area. Right now, the kids are going in 3 shifts of lunches. People are starting to have their lunch at like 10 a.m., just so we can get everybody through on time. This school, as it's remodeled, we'll be able to handle that size kids, but that's not the long-term strategy. What we're thinking about is a future Ogden site. We have an option for a piece of property right next to Holcomb Elementary where we would be able to provide educational parity for both sides of the school district. There would be 2 new middle schools, and then we would be able to repurpose Ogden to be an elementary school that has just been enhanced and upgraded. So I think you may have heard that there's some development planned in that neck of the woods for the city. There's some significant subdivisions that may happen, Kent. And it's our hope, right? So we want to be prepared for that. So the school district, with the eye on the long term, is making sure that none of this investment is stranded or lost. We'll be able to use it, and that school will be available and ready to serve the new students as they show up. But that's not all we're going to do, because every school in the district is going to be touched, not just for safety and security, but making sure that these 61-year-old, on average, buildings are able to function well for all of our students. And Kyle, who spends a lot of time wandering in and out of classrooms, wanted to talk to you about that.
Not only wandering in and out of the classrooms, but spending 8 years as a principal in the district and spending time on this stuff right here. So, which takes away from learning, obviously. We've got, Chris showed you guys the age of our buildings. So with that, you can obviously make some assumptions about how some of our systems are in terms of that age of that building and what they need to be. And so part of this bond will help us in all of our school buildings renovate, replace, in the areas it's needed, HVAC systems, roofs, electrical, plumbing. Okay, also help us install some LED lighting within those buildings. And these things are going to help us obviously create learning environments that are more conducive to learning. When you have HVAC systems, you have other internal systems that are not working well, a lot of times that can create a learning situation for a kid for a day or a couple of days that isn't the prime learning space. Your attention is more towards heat or cool than it is towards algebra. And we want to create those consistencies for those students. And we also want to create, obviously, energy efficiency within our buildings. There's a cost savings there, and any cost savings you have goes back into the classroom, okay, and helping to educate our kids. So a large portion of this, as you look at it, is replacing some of those aging systems that really are in need of either being replaced or repaired so that they're at a level that better serves our students. Also, we talked a little bit earlier about career and technical education. A lot has changed in terms of how we educate kids and how we want to educate kids effectively, especially in the areas of career and technical ed. And our spaces, a lot of them are not conducive to that right now. And so being able to go into our buildings and redo things in a way that allows us to give kids more career and technical education opportunities is going to be part of what comes along with this as well. Obviously playing a significant role with our secondary students, but we also need to do some things different in our elementary buildings that would allow kids to engage in activities that relate to career and technical ed as well. which, along with this, looking at expanding classroom space. Okay, taking a look at what those classroom spaces currently look like, how it is that we need to be able to educate kids moving into the future, and expanding those spaces that we have right now to make sure that they're adequate for the type of learning that we want to engage our kids with, and that we're also, it kind of relates back to that overcrowding conversation as well too. Okay, and making sure that we've got adequate space for our students as well. And with that, I'm going to ask Chris to talk about oversight.
This is really exciting, isn't it? The way we're bouncing back and forth is totally keeping you awake. I can tell. It's great. I do want to say one more word on the classroom spaces because, as I said, 5 members of the school board, we went to these architectural conferences. We had the conversations. There was a discussion of what variables will make the biggest difference for the kids. And the answer out of 192 variables, the #1 variable is a quality teacher. It is the thing that will make the difference for the kids. And other factors can detract from the teacher's ability to engage with the kids. So part of what we're talking about right now is removing barriers that exist for the teachers to be able to teach the way we want them to teach. I don't know if you have any kids. If you have kids in the school district right now, you are probably sometimes wondering why they come home early on Wednesdays. We release students an hour early every week and then use that hour as a professional development time for our teachers because we want to train them consistently, invest in them, because we know the best thing we can do for the kids is make sure the teachers are the best that they can be. And that's why we focus on them, and that's why we want to remove the barriers that we're talking about here. And what's fascinating is the concepts change. You know, if you looked at McLaughlin, when it was built in the 70s, the concept was pod classrooms. And you're going to go in and we're going to remove the walls and have this collaborative space. And then it got really loud, because I don't know if you put 60 kids in a room before, but they are kind of noisy, and then teachers had a little trouble. But then it became, we're gonna do it this way, and then we're gonna do it that way, and it shifts over time. So part of our strategy with the new buildings is to build flexible spaces. Pedagogy will change. One of our big emphases right now, particularly around the career and technical education, is project-based learning. We want the kids to actually do it, not sit in a classroom and read a book about it. So Case, for example, they have a manufacturing facility. We have the heavy equipment, we have a lab, we have the things where the kids will go and do. And then you might say, instead of taking a reading class or a math class, you'll say you're going to do a project, and that project will require reading and math and some history research and the physical skills to produce whatever it is, do some analytics to summarize. That's an attractive model that we are pushing forward. But maybe that changes. Maybe we find a better way. The spaces that we're going to construct will be able to handle flexibly the future instructional model. And that's our goal, because we don't want to have to ask you twice. It's uncomfortable enough being up here. But as part of that, we want to make sure that the community is assured that we are accountable for the dollars that you would commit to us as part of a bond. So we are forming a bond oversight committee. And by the way, if anyone is interested, applications are up and being accepted on the school website, because I know a lot of you are thinking, I know this is going to pass because this is a great idea. We really want to invest in the kids of our community, but I want to make sure that Kyle spends it right, because I've seen the way that he talks and he might go off and do something crazy. So let's make sure and submit that application. I'm totally okay with that. I think it would be great to have someone keep an eye on him. So we would love for people to come in and advise us on that. So we're open for questions, and I see a hand up already. So we're going to please let you ask your question. He has a microphone, so we can make sure that it gets picked up on the recording.
Actually, I want to do a kudo first. I volunteer at the high school, and the things that the high school is doing, Tom's is really good at it. Well, I happen to be in the Aspire program. I don't know if you know what that is, but I can talk to people later. Anyhow, they're doing a lot of things to get people to go through, to do things. They've got stuff on the walls, you know, about encouraging people. They really do a great job. But I have a question that's McLaughlin, the one on South End. Mm-hmm. Certain times of the day, it becomes a roadblock. And I mentioned this to Larry Didway some time ago when he was at the Rotary doing a thing on this. Yeah. But are you going to be able to do anything about taking care of that problem? Because it's really bad at 7th.
Yeah. 7:15 to about 7:50, it's a total mess, isn't
It's
it?
8 o'clock now.
Yeah. And you know, this is a great example of a safety and security update that we would be talking about, because you might be thinking, it wasn't that way 5 years ago. What changed? And the answer is, what used to happen is we had a common drop-off route. The parents and the buses were all looping in the same driveway parking lot, because I don't know if you know this, but it's not typical in the 50s for everyone to drive their kids to school. But it is now. People do it a lot. We see a ton of parent traffic, way more than the schools were designed to handle. And the way the systems were designed and set up, you have an overlap of the parents and the buses in the same area. When we've had kids, I mean, this is one of our safety issues. Kids will see their parents during pickup, and they'll just bolt out in front of buses, in front of other traffic cars. And that intermixing of traffic in different drop-off pickup zones is one of the things that we want to try and fix. This is actually a temporary solution out there on McLaughlin, because we went to the city, and they were graciously willing to allow us to try having the buses drop off on the street over there in what is primarily a bike lane, and then have the parents just use the parking lot in that circle, which works great. But because so many people drive their kids, the left turn into the school is becoming worse and worse and worse. It's not so much that the buses aren't there, frankly, that would make it worse, but it's the fact that people drive their kids. So one of our hopes is to look at a way to redesign the traffic access so we can ensure that separation for students and buses and mitigate the traffic impacts. Yeah, I hear you.
Nice presentation, gentlemen. Thank you very much. I had the honor of serving on one of those committees with the unpronounceable acronym, and one of the pieces that was enlightening to me particularly was the concept of environment as an educator. They talk about the environment of your home or your church or your family, your school, your teachers, and so on. They talked about the environment itself, the amount of lighting, the amount of space, the air conditioning, the temperature. All of those pieces are educators that without that proper environment, they really can't be expected to have a decent education. So that's a big takeaway. Can you elaborate on why our environment is so important to the kids?
That was not a planted softball. I just want to make clear. Thank you, William. He served graciously on our committee. He came to evening meetings, and part of that conversation is very much what I talked about as far as the variables that make the biggest difference. There are things that take away from the teacher's ability. For example, at Ogden, there are 8 classrooms in the middle of the school that have no natural light at all, no windows, no nothing. You're just walked in and there's fluorescent lights. And statistical studies show that, and I don't understand it exactly, but kids do better when there's windows and natural light and a sort of sense of space and engagement. The teacher will sometimes say, look out there, that's that tree that we're talking about. Whatever it is, I don't know exactly what the variable, why that works, but it does. Those classrooms are less effective for students. And one of the things that we're looking at is ensuring that every classroom has proper ventilation, proper, visual, natural light, proper temperature control, because I'll look at West. Most of our schools are not air conditioned. So there are certain times of the year, where it can be a little cold, but especially in the beginning and the end, it can get really hot. And right after lunch, I don't know about you, but that's around nap time for some of these kids, and it gets a little challenging for the teacher. So if we can remove some of those barriers, I think we absolutely should do that. Yeah.
Nothing personal, Chris, but this is for Kyle.
Oh.
I'm in the manufacturing arena every day, and you guys don't realize, but Kyle Laird he kind of put Case on the map for the state. So I'm out of Boeing a couple days a week, and they even know about Case. So they really value anytime there's any training being done for future employees for Boeing. So hats off to you, Kyle, for that. Now, we have a new tech building that's going to open, the grand openings next week. And so tell us about the relationship between Case and the college and the future industrial park we're going to have across the street from them.
Wow, Brian, you're bringing me back quick, aren't you? So, and I'm a little, I will share with you, in working with the principals at the high schools now, all 3 buildings have relationships with Clackamas Community College in the industrial area. So while students that attend the college are going to benefit from that new building, students at Case, Oxlaw, and Oregon City High School will be benefiting from it as well too. So that's a huge player in terms of helping our kids get prepared in that area. We have a facility for manufacturing on the Case campus, but we use both facilities. So we go to the community college, we also have kids on our campus, and then the high school, Oregon City High School and Oxlaw are able to completely use CCC to make sure kids get that education. So that partnership provides us an opportunity to, as we look forward into things and different opportunities come around, that's a strength in our community. And hopefully what that means is as other opportunities and other job sectors open up, we'll have an opportunity to engage in those as well too. Obviously, when you consider all the sectors of getting kids ready for, it's really hard for a K-12 system to get kids ready specifically in all those sectors. But our partnership with the college definitely helps with that because all the opportunities that are there, for the most part, can be available for our students. And just that ability for Clackamas Community College to be responsible for part of that, and enables us to look in some other areas where maybe we're not completely in there as well. But I think what you're getting at, Brian, is that we have opportunities with manufacturing coming into Oregon City. We have a great opportunity with the community college and the focus that our high schools have in preparing kids in those areas to create a workforce for companies that may come in and invest like a Benchmade has, or some of these other companies that we have in the city now. So there's already a bit of a pipeline right there that's obviously preparing or helping all companies in the Portland metro area, but specifically it could be really great for companies that are in Oregon City or decide to be in Oregon City.
On the workforce side, I sit on the Clackamas Workforce Partnership Board, and on behalf of the board and the business community, are we getting you enough input? Are we getting enough businesses to come in and tell you what is needed as you guys re-envision and try to come up with these improved facilities in the high schools that will feed into our beautiful new tech center? Do you have enough involvement, or do we need to get out there and recruit more businesses to come in and get involved in the schools?
Yeah, so I think it's a strength in terms of how much we are getting from the community, especially the business community with our schools. I know Oxlaw is receiving a lot of support, Case is receiving a lot of support, and so is OCHS. Part of my role as assistant superintendent is really overseeing teaching and learning, and that probably over time will be something that we engage in. That's been done kind of by school building, and taking a look at the bigger picture of what is it we want for all graduates that come out of our school system, and specifically in the area of what skills is it that kids need to be ready no matter what sector that they're going into. I think there's a bigger conversation that we could engage in. So I would say it's been great. We want to keep doing that, but we may also create an opportunity to open that up even more and take a picture of looking at that as a district versus just in those separate high schools that we have right now. Okay.
I hear a lot of outreach to the business community. Are you outreaching to the building trades? I remember when I was going to Oregon City High School, we had a full-on foundry. We had sheet metal shops that if they took enough classes, they actually accounted for their first year of apprenticeships with the sheet metal workers, the electricians, all those that have apprenticeship programs. It seemed like a very natural thing to reach out to also.
Yeah, and speaking specifically to that, I appreciate you saying that, because when we talk about industry, I tend to wrap them into that. And I shouldn't do that. I should separate those things out and identify that. Case, for a long time, has been preparing a lot of students to get into apprenticeship programs. And I know when I was there, and I'm sure it's still the same now, we had a lot of kids getting in at 18 that were beating out the 20-year-olds. Because of the preparation that was specifically designed to get kids into those apprenticeship programs. And I know right now, over the last probably in forgive me, I've been gone, but I want to say it's over the last year or two. The former principal at Oxlaw and the new principal at Oxlaw have been heavily focused on connecting with the trades and the apprenticeship programs and creating pipelines and opportunities for our students at that high school as well, to engage in those opportunities. So there's a lot of efforts being made there. Still could be more, but a lot of great work being done there to connect kids to those apprenticeship programs and to the trades.
One final comment. You thought, Kent, we were done, but we're not. We had one last slide.
Well, I'm going to kind of ask some questions that are going to be a little bit outside the box that we discussed at our recent board meeting.
Okay.
But I also understand that the state might be able to match up to $8 million of funds for the school district.
Absolutely true. We are Wes can speak to it more specific because I think he has the most updated numbers. We are guaranteed several $1 million of state funding if we 3.7 guaranteed right now if it's passed, and we have the opportunity for that to go all the way up to 8 million. I won't bore you with the details. There's a bunch of funds, and you're on a ranking system, and our school district is at the top. So we're going to be able to accomplish even more through that state funding, sort of free money. We're a big fan of that.
I'm being joined by everybody that wants to stretch back here.
Yes, yes.
But also, I think it's great that you've been able to take Park Place, grade school, Mount Pleasant is being obviously changed completely for the new police station, King, Eastham, they're all being repurposed. The old Oregon City High School that I attended on Jackson is being repurposed. Is there ever a thought as to what you might do with the building at Thorby Gardner? Does it necessarily have to be demolished? True, it no longer serves the needs as a middle school for the students, but is there possibly another use for that structure rather than demolition, which costs money to do by itself? And then along those same lines, if you do have to demolish it, would the city ever consider selling part of that land? We all know that the price of land has gotten very expensive to do any type of development these days. So you have this asset sitting there, possibly idle. So maybe there's a higher and better use for that. And then just one step above that, across the country, I'm also on the Home Builders Association board. And I'm glad, Damon, your question about the technical trades, because when I was at Thorby Gardner, I had shop. I actually learned how to work different types of equipment with my hands. But over 90% of the construction companies across the country say we have a shortage of skilled craftsmen. And it's, we have wildfires, and we have floods, and we have hurricanes, homes are demolished. And there's going to be huge demand for construction people to go ahead and fill those gaps. With the value of land, has a school district ever thought about selling air rights so that when you're envisioning future development of another school, that actually the air rights above that school could become housing for the teachers, could be repurposed for some other type of uses. You own the land, all the utilities are stubbed in, you've got ample parking, you've got fields for recreational purposes. Does that ever enter into the thought process?
Oh, absolutely. We make Kyle sleep in the conference room. So, yeah, well, that's why we want the HVAC system, because he wants heated. So if I'm recalling your questions, there were three. The first was, did we look at an alternative to demolishing Gardner? The second being, have we looked at selling land? The third being air rights. Okay, I want to make sure I capture everything. The first on demolishing Gardner. Part of the challenge is there are standard spaces that are used for schools, and it's not just the building itself. In the exterior, when we have a track, you have athletic fields. Part of our programs for the students isn't just sitting in a classroom, but getting out, doing things, being physically active. The school district, sponsors a track team. We sponsor, we have soccer, and we have baseball, and we have all these other activities. We want the kids to be active and be physically educated as well as mentally educated. So the space that we're talking about where the current building is and would be demolished is in part to allow us to construct facilities that would support physical education. I don't know, I mean, there's sort of rough guidelines for what space you would need around the different size buildings. You know, a high school campus is bigger than a middle school, which is bigger than an elementary school. I haven't looked nor heard about whether or not there would be the possibility of splitting some pieces off. Part of it is around site access. For the Gardner one in particular, we're bounded by, there's, you know, the church, there's PGE, and a cemetery. Yeah, on the backside, and then cul-de-sacs that end in houses. So it's not obvious where a path for developing even a portion of that would be, because I'm presuming we've all seen Poltergeist and know it's a bad idea to develop around cemeteries. Okay. And then your third question as far as air rights. That has not been a conversation that I've seen, in part because I suspect the schools out here in the West, while land is scarce here in the Portland metropolitan area, not generally in the West. I lived in New York City for 4 years. There the land is scarce and the schools go vertical. Part of our design, and Wes can speak to this if you like, we are looking at going more vertical and having multi-level, making sure there's a lot more natural light. We're being more efficient with the spaces. Frankly, it's cheaper to go up than it is to go out, which is part of our strategy for being prudent stewards of the money that's being entrusted to us. But the engagement or idea around housing for teachers or others, I don't think we've hit that point yet, but I would certainly be open to that conversation going forward. Yeah.
You hit them all. Thank you.
Another question that kind of connects to the local trades. I think in the past you guys have used the construction manager, general contractor rule in kind of getting your bids out. And I had some experience with that in Lincoln County where it was used to, as much as we could, given the scope of these buildings that were being built at the school district, have some preference for buying local. For certain types of trades. You've got HVAC, there's plumbing, there's all sorts of stuff. Obviously, you'll have big general contractors overseeing these jobs. Are you going to be doing anything like that, and will that be part of what the Citizens Advisory Group is going to be doing? To make sure you do that.
That would be you're going to make me veer into my day job type stuff. I'm sorry. That would be something we would have to write into our local contract review board rules, and all the government people are nodding, and all the other people are like, what? The short answer is government is required to take the low bid. We take the low bid so long as they meet the minimum qualifications, which, by the way, think about every time you take an elevator in a public building. And
that's how the school district presented it when they put it in as part of their bond out in the.
Right. We certainly do prefer and have looked. We hire not just construction companies, but an owner's rep, because I don't know if you've noticed, but most teachers don't have extensive experience in construction management. So we actually hire someone to come in on behalf of the school district to help sort of supervise the contractor to ensure that we're getting the quality product that the community is expecting. And as part of that conversation, we do engage in, I recall specifically Wes talking about looking for local companies to bid, local companies to participate, that was something that we were encouraging and looking for. Yeah. And Wes has more to say about that.
So I have to justify why I'm here. So, no, I did want to speak to that because one of the important things that we'll be doing as part of our bond, we'll be doing construction packages at elementary schools that are not, that are, I would say, more appropriate for local construction companies, and we definitely will do outreach events to them as well as providing some preference points. I think probably for Gardner, we'll look at a construction manager, general contractor relationship, probably lean that direction. We haven't decided quite yet because that's a very significant project where we do want the expertise of a contractor with us early on in the project. But for some of these other projects that are going to be hundreds of thousands of dollars, we'll probably look at a hard bid process for that with change orders that are more traditional type arrangements. And then we'll be very open in providing preference points to local companies that can prove they can do that kind of a scope of work. So that excites me because I am a community member for over 30 years, and I love to see, like when we use Kaufman Excavating to do the excavation at our transportation facility, just gave me a really good feeling that we're using local people. So that's kind of where we're headed with the smaller packages.
Following up on that, Wes, don't go away. The Oregon City Police Department is is using, I think, an interesting model on the development of their new safety facility of having a contractor who specializes specifically in police facilities, because they are different than other types of construction. And it occurs to me that because the safety issue is such a paramount importance to our school facilities, that there might be some similar model that could be employed in developing really qualified people. Yes, we want local, but we sure want people that have the expertise in developing school buildings. Because it's not just a regular building, especially with the safety factor. Has any consideration been given to that?
That's a good question. I think that starts long before you have a contractor. And so we've already engaged an architectural firm out of Portland, probably the most experienced group of architects, probably have been doing our school design for the last 30 to 40 years and have extensive experience here in the Northwest. And they have people who specialize in safety and security in schools, and that's what their viewpoint is from a design standpoint. So we already have a really good partner on board with our team right now. And then, of course, when we do our selection process for whoever will construct our facilities and work on them, experience in school construction will obviously gain them a lot of points. And so the highest values are not always numerical values for pricing. It's experience and expertise that can be demonstrated in helping us build the best possible building. We expect these buildings to last 50 to 60 years. At least. At least. Now, we made our current buildings last way beyond their reasonable life expectancy. So we're kind of already on that path, William, and I'm sure that we'll get another team member on our side who will be just as qualified.
Hey, Wes, while you're still up there, we've talked a little bit about getting kids to school safely and some ideas about how we could partner on that. We just got a grant through Clackamas County for kind of a last mile shuttle service, kind of like what Forest Grove has with their Grove Link. So it makes sense to me, or have you considered one of these subcommittees to be more of a transportation related committee that would maybe identify those projects that maybe we could work together on and figure out, can your parking lots accommodate that kind of bus service as well as the school bus service? Because I know in Forest Grove, students are getting to school with these other forms of transportation.
Yeah. That's an interesting intersection of state law and then also cultural trends. More parents than ever are transporting students to school because of safety concerns between their home and the school. And then, of course, we have parking restrictions based upon design standards here in Oregon City, like any other city would have, because we want to encourage kids to walk. And so we have to have safe and reliable pathways for students to walk to school. And then the state law says that we cannot get any state funding for transportation within a mile of an elementary school or a mile and a half of a secondary school unless there's a safety or health concern. And that's a challenge on the state side. So you have to navigate those very carefully so that we don't lose that state funding, and at the same time can assure a parent that it is a safe and effective way to get their students to school on time. It's those trends, and then also would share that we are doing a project with the city when we design the new Gardner. We'll be really emphasizing connections to neighborhoods in the area and working with the city on developing those safe crossing paths as well as areas to get to school. We could probably look at a shuttle type service from different areas around the school district, the attendance area of Gardner. Look forward to doing a project like that we can replicate throughout the district, knowing that we have limited resources, of course, going forward. But yeah, we're trying to push that as much as possible, but still working with parents who want to drive their kids to school and want to see them walk in the building or drop off at the front door. So we'll have to work on that a bit.
If there aren't any other questions, I think I've got one wrap-up question for Chris, probably. This presentation ostensibly was not just about what a great school district we have and about how much we need facilities and so on, but the funding mechanism to make all of these things happen vis-a-vis the bond, that four-letter word that everybody loves. And so to that end, I mean, I don't think the dime is going to scare anybody, but have you been doing any polling, any projections on how well this is being received, what the chances are in November? It's going to be down ballot issue. It's going to be a very full ballot. But what the feelings are about getting this thing passed.
Sure, absolutely. We engaged with the community to try to find the price point that they would be comfortable with, because as you can imagine, when you can tell from the passion of the staff and the way we feel, if you had your druthers, that number would be a lot bigger, right? We would be making much bigger investments and being able to really transform things, because I want to emphasize one thing. The high school was a transformative experience for the community. When we built it in 2003 and it opened, it transformed the educational opportunities for our students. We located it right next to CCC. There's a paved path with benches and lights where our students are shuttling back and forth. Students are graduating with more college credits than ever, and it has really allowed us to increase the services that we can offer our students and take it to the next level. We're hoping to do the same thing with the middle school experience, and in phase 3, the elementary school experience. The polling has suggested that this will pass, and that's why we put it on the ballot. I don't know if you know this, but as politicians, we tend to favor things that win. It's strong. But it's not overwhelming. And so part of our conversations today, staff informative, me advocating, is to say it's not that big a deal. One thing that I will emphasize is the original bond for the school, for the high school, when it passed, was $2 per thousand. You just saw that you're currently paying $1.14. When we talk about what it's an additional dime, that's the worst case scenario. Because that's if everything stays the same and you don't have any appreciation of property values and you see no growth in your community, that's what the number's going to be over the lifespan of 20 years. You'll pay that much per year. But that's not, I think we can all just say, that's not what's going to happen. What you're going to see is, as the growth in our community in both the value and additional construction occurs, it will drive down everyone's per unit contribution required, because we're not borrowing however much we can at $1.24. We're saying to borrow $158 million, it will require us to receive $1.24. That number will go down over time. So I offer you my personal guarantee. Oh wait, this is being recorded, right? No, never mind, I take that back. I offer the observation that it is extremely likely that that number will be the same or less than what you're paying right now in a very few years. And the dime that we're talking about is a relatively trivial expense to add to your property taxes for the opportunity to transform the educational experience for the middle schools, and in some way take up the burden that is on us. Right now, Oregon City School District, when you look at the bond rates, we compared ourselves against the 16 school districts that are in the Portland metropolitan area. We're third from the bottom. There are only 2 school districts that have a bond rate lower than us, and they're both further out. Gladstone has a much higher bond rate than we do. North Clackamas, Westland Wilsonville, Lake Oswego, Canby. Those communities are investing in their schools at a higher rate than we are, and our schools are old enough where we think it's appropriate to ask the community at this moment to step forward and reinvest in the infrastructure that was created in some ways by previous generations, and to pay it forward to the generations to come. So I hope you will join me in supporting the bond. This will be on the ballot in November, and thank you very much for your attention today. We appreciate it.